Podcast. We are back for another daily edition of Photo Q&A, where we answer one of your photography questions every single day of the week, along with the help from my high school best friend, Paul, who's going to keep me on track and ask any clarifying questions if I get too technical or anything that the beginner photographer like yourself may not understand. Sometimes I just get into my head and get going pretty crazy. So if you have any questions that you want answered about photography or anything even related to photography, feel free to ask those questions. Submit your questions. You can do so on Instagram. Just comment on any of our photos. You can leave us a comment on Facebook. That's facebook.com/beginner photography podcast. Or just shoot us an email at beginnerphotographypodcast@gmail.com. And guys, if you like this episode and you get any sort of value out of it whatsoever, I would be forever grateful if you left us a review in iTunes or whatever podcast player you are listening to us on right now. That's it. Let's go ahead and get into today's question.
All right, Raymond. Coming at you from Christine. She wants to know, what is manual mode exactly, and why is it so much better?
What is manual mode exactly?
Educate Christine, would you, Raymond?
Paul, you've been doing this with me for a while. Why don't you tell me what you think manual mode is?
Manual mode is when you control every aspect of a camera, not allowing it to make the decisions for you, a lot like Skynet would want.
Good old Skynet. That is exactly it. So when you talk about the full manual control, making all of the decisions, what you are referring to is the only three things that you need to control a photo, to expose the photo, which is aperture, which is how much light you let through the lens, your shutter speed, which is how long you let that light expose for the camera sensor, and your ISO, which is how sensitive that sensor is to the amount of light coming in. So when you can control all three of those things, and you can even take it another step by controlling the white balance as well. But when you
with the gray card, right? Are we talking about gray cards?
That's how you accurately measure color. But that's not always the right answer. Accurate white balance is not always the right answer, but that's another question. So we'll just stick with this. So one of the big reasons why you want to be shooting manual, why it's better over auto controls, is simply because your photos are going to be more consistent when you are not making any changes to your photos during a set, right? Like if you're in this little clearing and you're going to go out and you're going to take you're just going to pose them like, hey, okay, like turn this way or do that or look this way and put your arm around them. If you're in the same spot, you're not going to want to change your shutter speed or your ISO or your aperture because you're just in one spot. Like the light isn't going to be changing enough for you to have to change any of those three settings. So therefore, if you keep them all the same, your photos are going to be very consistent, which is going to save you a ton of time when it comes to editing because you won't have to make individual edits on all of your photos. So that's a plus. On top of that, what I think is most important about shooting manual is that it gives you confidence. And there are some professional photographers out there who they don't shoot in full manual. They shoot in what's called aperture priority. So you determine the aperture that you want to decide how much depth of field that they're going to get for each photo, and then the camera decides what the shutter speed should be. And that's fine, letting the camera make some decisions, but at the same time, when you're shooting full manual and you understand how each aspect of the decision-making process goes and what questions you need to be asking yourself when you first walk in the room and looking at where the light is coming from and how much light is coming from there and how you're going to frame your subject and how things like that are gonna throw off your camera's meter down at the bottom, then having that confidence to know oh, I know exactly what changing my shutter speed is going to do in this situation. I know exactly that I know that maybe I don't want to shoot it at an f2.8. Maybe I want this whole scene in focus because it's a pretty wide shot and it doesn't really need any It doesn't need a shallow depth of field. And having a larger depth of field is going to make the photo more compelling when everything is in focus. So knowing what it is that changes your photos is going to make you better, because now when you look at a scene and you can see the photo in your head, you're immediately going to know how to capture it. You're going to know exactly what you need to do in able to get that photo that you can see in your head, rather than walking in there, having the camera set in auto, take a picture, and realize that it did not do what you wanted it to, and have no idea how to fix it, how to make it better. Because essentially at that point, you're just going in there and pressing a button. Trying to figure out a composition, pressing a button. And a lot of things that I found early on when you're shooting in auto mode is that for some reason it favors shutter speed. So a lot of times, like if there's not an abundance of light, like even if you're just inside of a house, even if that house has really good windows, the camera in automatic mode will like slow down the shutter speed, which will mean that everything is kind of blurry, like there's motion blur, right? And that's you just don't want that in photos. What good is a fuzzy photo if if it's not sharp and everybody's walking around? In full manual mode, however, it's not a problem. So just go ahead and make the switch. I guarantee that it's going to be 100% worth it. Just dive right on in. But if you still have like paying clients, make the transition gradually. You don't want to jump right in. Well, and that's it.
I got a question now.
Yes.
Follow up. Okay. Do you think Arnold, as the Terminator, if he was taking a photo, would he have it in manual or auto?
No. It'd be in manual. He's just a badass, right? He would just. I feel like Arnold's the kind of guy who, whatever he does, he's gonna do it to the best of his abilities. And
but it's not Arnold. We're talking about a machine.
We're talking about a machine. Well, then if we're talking about a machine, this machine, all that it does is compute algorithms and try to figure out the best possible outcome. So, I mean, that's essentially what the camera's doing. So you're kind of asking, would a computer ask another computer what to do, or would the first computer know what to do from the beginning?
Would the computer second guess the computer? I think it would. I think it would put that camera in a manual and then make the adjustments itself, because it knows that the camera's viewpoint, not to be no pun intended, is only of the camera, while the Terminator has such a larger perspective of the world that it can understand. So the Terminator's going to put that camera in manual.
I don't know. I think this is just a question that we're never going to have the answer to.
Okay, whatever.
All right, Paul. Great question. Great answer. Thanks, Christine. See you tomorrow.
All right, bye.
Guys, I hope that you liked today's question. I hope that it brought you value and some sort of actionable tip that you're going to be able to implement and put into your photography journey to advance you to wherever you want to be, whether it's just a hobbyist or if you really want to take your photography professional and open up some sort of studio or business to do so. I hope that you got at least one piece of information out of today's episode. And again, if you did, please, please, please give us a review in iTunes. That's all that I ask for. I ask for nothing out of you, out of this podcast. These podcasts take a lot of time to create, and I'm so happy to do so if you are going to take these tips and implement them to grow yourself, to grow your photography. So the only thing that I ask of you is if you could just please leave us a rating and review in iTunes or whatever podcast player or app you are listening to us on right now. Again, guys, if you have any photography questions or about anything photography related, feel free to send us an email at beginnerphotographypodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Facebook, facebook.com/beginner photography podcast, or find us on Instagram, where you'll be able to keep up with us and all of our guests that we have on the podcast as well. And that is Instagram username Beginner Photo Podcast. That's all that I got for today. I hope that you guys get out there, shoot something fun, enjoy. I love you guys, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.